what is Greenheat? Greenheat is a basically marketing term for Greenheck, but it's our space heating unit. So our space heating unit is exactly what I described with a direct gas fired DGX model, except now it's going to cycle on and off and typically not be married to an exhaust system. So now we're superheating the air, effectively bringing in outside air for fresh ventilation, superheating it to 140 degrees. And the space condition is what's driving that enable and disable. So once we satisfy the space condition, the whole unit actually disables. So direct gas fired heating, 92% efficient, 100% outside air, and 140 degree max temporize or leaving air temperature to effectively get that space temperature up to 65 or 70 degrees as fast as possible, and then cycle off. So fixed sizes that optimize the cost per BTU. The advantage of Greenheat is if you guys play around in CAPS at all, our selection software, if you search the model Greenheat, if you want to do more of like a design build type application, you got a large warehouse or general manufacturing facility, we've got built-in design load skin load calculations for you in the Greenheat selection software. All we need is perimeter. We need what the roof height is, how many dock doors you have, how many service doors you have. You can change the percentage of activity. You can kind of fine tune that building, insulation values of ceiling, insulation values of walls, and we'll actually calculate what your skin load loss in your building to tell you what the BTU requirement is for effective space heating. So give you the minimum recommendations for how many units would effectively satisfy that space, but also just use that BTU number for whatever you want. If you want to go to electric heat pump, it'll do its free design build software built into our Greenheat selection. So just keep that in mind. Again, it does populate though. Amazon distribution facility, for example, 1,000,000 square foot facility, you can get away with as little of 8 units to effectively heat and ventilate that very large 1,000,000 square foot facility. So very effective way to approach both ventilation and the heating side for these very large spaces. And they'll cycle on demand for whatever that space condition is, very similar to your home furnace. So, and that high temp, more usable BTUs per CFM at the elevated discharge air temperature.
Hey,
now, I don't know if it, yeah.
Hey, Phil, this is about your 5 minutes.
Yep, I got it.
Heads up.
We're on, yep, thank you. Just wrapping up here. So, in case you've ever heard of Cambridge, just to keep in mind now what the Greenheat selection actually is. If you've ever heard of the Cambridge model, that is exactly basically the same thing. So Cambridge is a space heating direct gas fired unit, as well as our Greenheat model. Now, just to clear up some confusion that often happens out there, Cambridge will specify, so if we see this stuff on a schedule, they specify inlet air because their blower is before the burner section. So it looks very confusing on a schedule for the 1-for-1 when you look at a direct gas fired Greenheat unit. So we'll specify the 8,266 CFM being delivered into the building. When truly, once that airflow is actually being heated up, we're both providing 1,200 BTUs or 1,200 MBH into that building, but effectively at 160 degrees or 140 degrees. And truly, they're delivering that airflow at 7,487 versus our 8,266. So yes, it's slightly higher airflow, but don't get too tripped up on what that looks like on paper, because remember that it's inlet CFM that Cambridge unit is going to look at. So there's a lot of confusion around that. BTUs are BTUs. Again, it's just being introduced at 160 versus 140. Conversation there. People can argue there is definitely more BTUs available at that elevated discharge air temperature. I can't argue with that. That is why we're still slightly higher on the airflow, but slightly higher airflow means slightly higher on the air changes, as well as a little bit longer runtime for it to satisfy that space condition, but also provide a little bit more fresh air ventilation to that space. And 140 is going to climb to the ceiling a little bit less time than what 160 degrees is. So, but otherwise it's pretty much 1-for-1. BTUs again are basically BTUs in the end.